this magic green. It is the color green. It can do anything. Sometimes it speaks to me. It says, how? What have you done with your life? People around you keep dying. Use your will to right the wrong. Don't make us wait for too long.
Hey, it's Sean Marshall with Confluence, back for day 2 of our Fast and Furious weekend of 2 cons, GallifreyOne 2013 and Grand Slam Sci-Fi Creations 2013 show in Burbank, California. So we're going to start out at the Grand Slam. We're going to get Patrick Stewart's signature, the last one that I need on this cast photo from TNG. One of the highlights of today should be a lot of the TNG cast being at the Grand Slam Sci-Fi show, but also have a lot of concerns, as I said in the last video, about crowding, because it just seems impossible that there won't be overcrowding given the way things were set up last night when pretty much the entire place was empty. So we'll see. Then we're going to go to GallifreyOne, check out what they have to offer today. They have a lot of great panels, and as I talked about yesterday, they have some great stuff going on in their vendors room too, and their art show and things like that. So 2 fun shows. We'll check them all out. So yesterday we talked about there being a potential for major crowding and major clogging up of the arteries. You can see behind me, that is pretty much the entire show. The vendors are forced, and a lot of autograph hall is in the aisleways, and so on the other side you have an empty theater with pretty much nobody in there. Alright, we're wrapping up here at Grand Slam Sci-Fi for the second day. It's about halfway through the day or a little bit later. The only thing really wrapping up for under the con portion next day is completed the set of autographs for the Next Generation actors with Patrick Stewart. So that was cool to be able to kind of finally put that to bed after about 3 years of working on that and going to a lot of different shows to do that. In general, the concerns that there would be yesterday bared out today, which was it was overflowing. The Marriott Burbank just really can't handle this type of crowd, and that was a concern I had after Monster Palooza, after some of the bigger Hollywood autograph shows here and things like that. So it was overflowing. The arteries were really plugged up. Parking took forever. There literally wasn't a parking space in the entire parking lot around 10 o'clock this morning. So eventually found a spot, eventually got in. But it was very difficult to get around vendors. And then ironically, some of the back vendor rooms, in talking to some of those vendors, they're not getting much traffic at all. They've got kind of cardboard made up signs saying, hey, come down here, but it's such a hassle to get through. The crowd in general is following around the Next Generation crew. So that was the big draw, is getting most of the Next Generation cast not Denise Crosby, not Will Wheaton, but the rest of them on stage together for the nighttime activity tonight and for photos and things like that. So some rare opportunities there. But the crowd's pretty much going where they're going. So wherever they're at is where it's crowded. So the center panel room is empty when they're not there, and then it's packed when any of them aren't taking the stage, and so on and so forth. So seeing a trend that continues, I've seen a lot in the last year, which is just these upsells on these packages, which Creations always had upsells on the gold package preferred and all that, and that's fine. But definitely there was problems with some of the Patrick Stewart sign where they were pulling people out of line, and that always happens at creation shows. Some of the people in line with us weren't really aware of that's how it is. In general, I've shared this view many times, is when you have that preferred signing, it should just be a totally separate thing. The general people shouldn't even be there, whether it's 5 hours before, 15 minutes before, whatever. It just should be totally separate. It shouldn't be all mixed in line, because the second you start pulling people out of line and putting them to the front and giving all these special things, people are upset because they feel like they're being passed over and they've taken that time, and they should get more because they paid more, but at the same time it just should be its own setting. The preferred people on their side shouldn't be even mixed in with the general admission in the first place. So that was kind of a mishandling, but I don't even want to say it's mishandling, because it's just something they strategically, consistently make that decision. Just the same, they plan to be back here in 2014, and I don't really see them thinking about moving somewhere else, because they do other shows here, but it's just this place can't handle it. But as long as people are willing to pay those gold package prices and sellouts on Saturday, they'll keep having it here and just pack them in like sardines if they can. It'll be a different room of vendors, because many of these ones won't come back maybe, but they'll keep cycling through it until people kind of speak with their dollars and don't necessarily come. So we'll see. We're going to go head over to GallifreyOne now for the late afternoon, evening portion of the show and see what they have going on. Alright, so we made the drive over to GallifreyOne for day 2 here. For anybody wondering, I might try and do the 2 cons in one day for next year. It's about an hour drive in between, so if you're not familiar with LA traffic, it's not that it's an hour's worth of mileage, but it's an hour's worth of driving, hour and 20. So we've made it over here to GallifreyOne. We're going to take a look around, see what else it has to offer for the rest of the day and into the evening events, so follow us along. Alright, one of the things we didn't talk about yesterday is LobbyCon, which one of the unique things about GallifreyOne is the emphasis on community and actually using the lobby of the Marriott. It even has its own hashtag on Twitter, which is LobbyCon, which is where people meet up after hours and during the day to kind of build that community, play games, check in on the internet, whatever, but it's almost like its own convention unto itself. In fact, this year there was a lot of warnings from Gallifrey and from Marriott about people wanting to come, basically not coming without tickets, because so many Doctor Who fans that couldn't get in the show want to just hang out in the lobby for LobbyCon. So it's really interesting to see a lot of cosplay up here, a lot of people just hanging out in the lobby, enjoying it from dark in the morning to way past dark at night.
I was like, you watch season 2?
That's a really good
And I was like, you watch Moon Force?
Hello everyone. Exterminate, exterminate. Out of character Daleks. Out of character Daleks. Coming through. I'm just sorry. No sun. No sun. No sun.
No sun.
Die. Look at die. It's so good.
Alright, so we're wrapping up here at GallifreyOne for 2013 and we're going under the con. Didn't really pick up much of anything else to talk about too much for this day 2 of the event. But in wrapping up the show, we'll come back tomorrow and to both shows actually, but we're not going to film any of that, kind of put things to bed on Sunday. But in general, GallifreyOne was a very positive experience this year. The vendor room went up several notches. The cosplay went up. The overall energy of the show, and it just seemed like even the organization of the lines, they've always been pretty strong in that area, but everything seemed to really run like clockwork. They did lock it in at about 3,000 people and turned a lot of people away, so they knew exact the numbers they were dealing with, and that's what they're comfortable with, and that's the kind of show they put on, so it was fine. In kind of going under the con and looking at both shows, they really have a lot in common in that both of them are kind of in their own little world, and what I mean by that is they very much are their own creation. They don't really take a lot of feedback from outside their own little organization, and they run things the way they do it. Creation does a ton of shows a year. They've been in this business for a long, long time. They are the name in Star Trek conventions. They are the reason there are Star Trek conventions initially. And so they really have an idea of what they want to do and how they run their business, and it is what it is. They're very apathetic to something like Gallifrey running on at the same time, and they believe they've got their niche and they're going to run it. Heard a lot of attendees at both shows that didn't like the idea that it was on the same weekend. I know I was in that boat driving back and forth as well. But in the end, money speaks, and obviously a lot of people bought these tickets and went to both shows because both shows had great attendance. Gallifrey, same thing. I mean, I don't know if they're going to up their size at all, but again, it feels like they have their own little private party. They like what they're doing, and they're not really going to look for feedback outside that little family. And so both of these shows are going to continue doing what they do, and they're going to kind of continue operating on their island. And that's one of the things that's most upsetting just in general about the world of kind of conventions when it comes to sci-fi, comic geek conventions is how poorly these shows really work with each other and co-promote and things like that. They really are a survival of the business. They don't do a whole lot working with each other, and they really seem to kind of want to work as individuals and not work together too well. And that's not to say all shows are that way, but a lot of them are, and definitely these two were on separate islands. But I can't tell you how many people at both shows had complaints about the fact that it was the same weekend, had complaints about things related to capacity and how various aspects of the show were run in terms of being able to increase the scope. We're just living in a world where the convention business is growing and growing, and more people want to get into these shows, and so the conventions are kind of struggling in how they make that happen. So, in general, though, fun shows. Have to debate how to handle it next year. I believe both shows are going to be crashing into one another again. I may be off on that. I'll have to double check my calendars, but it'll be something to think about. I don't know that if Creation stays in the Marriott, there's really a need to go 3 days. It may be a one and done type con, because the vendor room is something that you can do in 10 minutes at the Marriott in Burbank, so that's about it. Gallifrey has much more depth to the vendor room and their panels. Again, Creation has one panel room, whereas Gallifrey has about 7 going, and so those are differences there too, so we'll have to look at that. But I thought Gallifrey took a big step forward this year. Creation's returning to LA, so that's just a step forward, the fact that they're back in town. So hopefully both of them will take another step forward next year. We'll see even better shows, good starts, or good outlook to both of them, and hopefully we'll see the best of things in 2014. So until next time, signing off.
I have this magic ring. It is the color green. It can do anything. Sometimes it speaks to me. It says, "How? What have you done with your life? People around you keep dying." swim in outer space. It's like I own the place. Do what the blue men say. Wish they would go